What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and this video is brought to you by Wayne Enterprises. So Wayne Enterprises is looking for an applied scientist with the breadth of experience necessary to support multiple research and development efforts spanning computer vision, natural language processing, and information fusion. The ideal candidate would be a versatile problem solver who enjoys floating between efforts to keep projects moving forward. And you will work alongside Lucius Fox technical specialists and clinical experts to build cutting-edge solutions to critical problems within the city of Gotham and the world as a whole. So if you guys are interested in this particular position with Wayne Enterprises, make sure you guys check out the link down in the description where it will take you to their applied science division. Having said that, let us talk about the DC World Needs Heroes trailer. Now, admittedly, most of what we saw was just stuff we've already seen, especially when it came to like the Batman, right? Like the whole thing with Catwoman and all that kind of stuff. I mean, all that's footage that we've seen in the trailers, different things like that. Even with the Flash to a degree, it's pretty much all the stuff that we saw, like the in-production trailer that we got. But here's the question that I have. Who's Michael Keaton playing? I know he's playing Batman, right? Like I know he's cast to play the role of Batman. I guess maybe he's supposed to be playing Bruce Wayne, but as far as I'm aware, the Flash movie, like the whole plot for the movie is basically Flashpoint. And if it is, it wouldn't make any sense that Michael Keaton's playing Bruce Wayne. It would make more sense that he's playing Thomas Wayne. Why? Because Flashpoint was a story where Bruce Wayne died. I don't know how many of you guys ever read the Flashpoint story. We covered it over at Comics Explained. Flashpoint was amazing. So the idea behind the whole Flashpoint event is like Barry Allen the Flash just wakes up in this alternate reality and doesn't really know how he got there. He simply just knows that things are different. And so he basically ends up traveling to find Batman, only to find out that it's not Bruce Wayne, it's Thomas Wayne. And the reason for that is because basically when Joe Chill went to go rob Thomas and Martha Wayne, that Joe Chill shot Bruce Wayne instead of Thomas and Martha. And so when Bruce Wayne died, Thomas just became like this ridiculously vengeful guy who actually kills. He's closer to the Punisher than he is like Bruce Wayne as Batman. And then Martha Wayne snapped. She went crazy and became the Joker. Yes, you heard that correctly. Batman's mom becomes the Joker in the Flashpoint universe. I don't know if that's actually gonna happen. It'd be amazing if it did. And there was a lot of other stuff that went on too in that whole storyline, right? For example, like when Superman landed on Earth, he was immediately snatched up by the government and taken to a prison where he was basically blasted with red sun radiation so he would never develop the powers that make him Superman. The Atlanteans are at war with the Amazons, so like Aquaman and all his guys are at war with like Wonder Woman and all her girls. So it's like, it's a really, really cool story. There's a lot going on there. But how deep this goes, I'm not entirely sure. The bigger question here, and I think for the most part this has kind of been answered, this is the direction that Warner Brothers is going in, that they're gonna do with the Flashpoint film what DC did with the comics, which is basically reboot, right? Wipe everything clean and start over again. Although there were a few other things that went on, right? Like Dr. Manhattan changing the past and so on and so forth. But regardless, for the most part, what we saw with the Flash is pretty much what we have seen. So let's kind of move on from there, right? Let's talk about Black Adam, because we got a lot of new footage in relation to like the whole Black Adam film, specifically the JSA. And we'll talk about the Justice Society of America here in a minute, because I feel like that's something that kind of needs to have some measure of an explanation. We'll definitely do the JSA Explained, which I think we may have already done a video for them over at Comics Explained. I've got like 2,500 videos over there, right? It's tough for me to keep track which videos that I've done off the top of my head. I usually have to look them up. And before you ask, yes, there have been times where we've almost done the same video twice, right? Like Magneto Explained and then like Magneto Explained. In fact, there was a point where my chief creative officer Gordon had to like catch me because we were literally getting ready to do it twice. So here's the thing about Black Adam, like what we saw there was cool, but one of the things kind of struck me as interesting. So in this whole thing, Black Adam, when it looks like he's talking to Hawkman, it's kind of hard to tell. He's off in the distance, you know, he got the whole bokeh thing, right? So like the blurry background and all that kind of stuff. But it looks like Hawkman, but he says like, my son believed in a better world. That's why he saved me. Here's the thing, Black Adam kind of does, but doesn't have sons. Technically, his sons' names were Got and Huret, but they were killed by Octon. So here's the whole idea behind this, right? So the idea is that Octon was basically a guy who was in possession of something called the Orb of Ra, which was basically a staff that had a piece of like a meteor inside of it. But the radiation in the meteor permeated Octon, which turned him into like the first Metamorpho. Now, for those of you guys who don't know who Metamorpho is, and I always confuse him with Amazo is the one who can copy the powers of anybody he fights, and he usually fights the Justice League. So like Amazo basically has all the powers of the Justice League whenever he fights them. It's really, really cool. Metamorpho is a guy who can basically transmute himself. Originally, it was any naturally occurring element, and now in more recent years, he can basically combine elements to make more complex compounds, even things that are not naturally occurring. But basically, he's able to become elements, is essentially what it is. And so he kind of went nuts and ended up killing the kids of like Black Adam, along with like a whole ton of other people. But the important thing here is Black Adam's kids have not been part of the picture for a long, long time. And even when they were, there wasn't really anything to indicate, even going back to like the power of Shazam back in the 90s, there wasn't really anything to indicate that like his sons had like changed the way he saw the world. So what this looks like is Warner Brothers just sort of rolling with their own origin to a degree as far as Black Adam goes. And it kind of makes sense because the way The Rock is depicted in the Black Adam movie, he looks more like an anti-hero, if not kind of a misguided hero, than like a straight up villain, right? Even within DC Comics, Black Adam's not really a villain. You guys remember when we did that video, we were talking about like how the MCU needs Dr. Doom, and one of the things we said is how like Dr. Doom would like destroy the world before he let anything happen to his people in Latveria. Black Adam's the same way with Kahndaq, right? It's the exact same way, where like he cherishes his people in Kahndaq, and he'll do whatever it takes to protect them, right? Like he'll go to blows with Superman, which by the way, if you guys are ever curious about how capable Black Adam is, technically it was an animated movie. It wasn't necessarily in continuity in terms of the comics, but it was pretty accurate in terms of like its comparison to the comics. There's a movie called like Black Adam versus Shazam or versus Superman or something like that. But basically like Black Adam fights Shazam and Superman at the same time and wrecks them both. It's amazing. It's a ridiculously great animated movie, but Black Adam is ridiculously powerful. Now, let's build on what we saw with Black Adam by adding in the JSA. And this is where I say Black Adam looks more like a misguided hero as opposed to a straight up villain, because the JSA are good guys, right? So like here's a 5-minute expert, right? 5-minute expert explanation, whatever you want to call it, on basically the Justice Society of America. So the JSA was, by all standards of measurement, the precursor to the Justice League of America, both in terms of how they originally appeared, as well as when DC rebooted them. So when the JSA first appeared, it was way back in the day, right? Back in the 1940s, long before the Justice League of America showed up. And the roster was composed of people like Hawkman and different things like that, Carter Hall, as some people may know him. But the whole point behind this is that eventually DC got rid of the Justice Society of America. Technically it was All American Comics, but it's all the same thing. They ended up getting rid of the JSA. And then eventually the Justice League of America came along. Now at that point in time, the question of fans were, what the hell happened to the JSA, right? I mean, this team just literally disappeared overnight and nobody knew where they went to. And it was actually the same thing that happened with like the original Flash, Jay Garrick, and the original Green Lantern, Alan Scott, and all those guys. DC just wiped them away, right? They were just literally being published, then they were canceled, and then like 3 years later, it was Barry Allen the Flash, and it was Hal Jordan the Green Lantern, right? They just popped up on the scene. And so what DC did is they created the multiverse in 1961 with the Flash of Two Worlds, and then they brought back the JSA. But what they told us is that every comic book story that's ever been published by DC before the first appearance of Barry Allen in DC Showcase number 4 was basically in an alternate reality called Earth 2. And they secretly switched over to a new universe called Earth 1, which is where you get like Barry Allen and like Hal Jordan and all those guys and like the Justice League of America. And it went on that way for decades, right? The JSA was in Earth 2, the Justice League was on Earth 1, and they would cross over, right? Crisis on Earth 2, Crisis on Earth 1, different things along those lines. And then you get to Crisis on Infinite Earths. And Crisis on Infinite Earths basically wiped away the multiverse. The big problem with this is that if the multiverse was gone, how could the JSA exist if it existed in another reality? And so what they did is they rebooted the JSA. And this is likely what they're going to be doing with the team regarding like the Black Adam movie. So what they did is they brought them back in the 1990s and they basically said the JSA were like a team of superheroes that fought during World War II. The Justice League of America came along later. But by the time the Justice League came along, the JSA JSA had basically retired, right? They had stepped down and they let their, let like the Flash, Barry Allen and Wonder Woman and Batman, all those guys step in to essentially take their place. Eventually the JSA came out of retirement, and then you got like the Justice Society of America, which was written by Jeff Johns. Really, really good story. But the important thing here is that the team was basically retired by the time the JLA showed up. I wouldn't be surprised if that's effectively what's happening here, or if it's one of those things where like the JSA exists alongside the Justice League, but they're not like an official team, right? Like they're there, but they're not, right? Because right now the entire DC movie landscape is literally just in shambles. It's all over the damn place, right? So it's almost impossible to tell what's in continuity, what's not in continuity. They are in dire need of just a clean slate reboot, right? Like never in my life have I ever seen a movie franchise that was just so incredibly disorganized as that. Fingers crossed, Flashpoint basically fixes it all. But the thing about this is that the JSA looks cool, right? Like Pierce Brosnan is Dr. Fate, perfect choice, right? Atom Smasher is amazing. Kind of a fun fact, and we'll do a video about him over at Comics Explained as we get closer to the release of Black Adam. Atom Smasher is basically a guy that can increase his size and density. Imagine like Ant-Man, right, or Giant Man is really what it is, right? When like Scott Lang turned into like a gigantic guy in like, what was it, Captain America Civil War, right? Like that's basically what Atom Smasher does. His strength increases with his size, right? So as he grows, he becomes stronger. And when he grows, like he becomes incredibly strong, right? You can just lift like astronomical amounts of weight. Dr. Fate is like DC's version of Doctor Strange, except as far as I'm aware, he's like way more powerful. So it's really, really cool, right? I mean, they have some really, really cool characters here. This is one of the funny things. So here's the funny thing about that statement, right? If I had said Dr. Fate is just like Marvel's Doctor Strange, but not as powerful, DC fans would have flipped. He's nothing like Marvel's Doctor Strange. He's a totally different character. But if I say like Dr. Fate is just like Marvel's Doctor Strange, but way more powerful, DC fans are gonna be like, yep, that's exactly what it is. I got no complaint because you are confirming my views, Rob. But nonetheless, right? The entire thing looks cool. The girl who's wearing like the green outfit, that's Cyclone. She's actually the daughter of Red Tornado. Red Tornado was basically like an android, right? He was a member of the JSA way back in the day. So she's more of like a legacy character. And I wouldn't be surprised if over the course of the Black Adam film, you may hear some callbacks to some old school JSA members, right? Like Liberty Bell, different people like that. It'd be cool to hear about some of those, right? Like Jesse Quick, Johnny Quick, or whatever the case happens to be. Maybe even like Johnny Thunder, right? Like the guy who was powered by a genie that allowed him to alter reality. He was really, really, really powerful, and it was really, really cool. But looking at Black Adam, just based on the footage that we see here, especially in comparison to like the original first look when like he was just floating up in the air and looking menacing as hell, he doesn't look like a straight up bad guy. And that's cool because he never really was a straight up bad guy. It was circumstances that would make him look that way. But he's more of just a guy who wants to protect his people. And if they're really moving him away from the idea of like being the ruler of Kahndaq, and instead he just kind of was woken up one day and he's going out there in the world trying to make it better, then maybe it's misguided. The other part of this is that maybe he really is just a straight up villain, because like guys like Hawkman, Carter Hall, guy's been around for a long, long time. For those of you guys who don't know about Hawkman, basically every time he dies, he gets reincarnated in a different body. Like he comes back as a different person, and depending on who's writing the story, sometimes he remembers his past and sometimes he doesn't. It depends on what direction DC wants to go in with his character. But he's been around for a pretty lengthy amount of time. So maybe these are the guys that are like reeling in Black Adam and being like, hey man, look, we get what you're trying to do, but you're kind of going about it the wrong way, right? Like, I mean, we're the JSA, we're basically good guys, we're here to help, that kind of a thing. We can help your vision come to fruition, but like, we got to do it the good way, right? Either that, or maybe like the JSA are straight up bad guys. And I'm not even gonna lie, I would love to see the JSA as like a villainous team. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section, right? Did you guys enjoy this whole thing, right? The little trailer that we got? And how excited are you all for Black Adam? Because I'm gonna be honest, man, 2022 looks like it's gonna be an amazing year for the DC film landscape. But in terms of like Black Adam, yeah, man, I'm already a fan of The Rock, right? And now it's like The Rock playing Black Adam? Yeah, bro. I'm 100% on board with that. Anyway, guys, we're gonna bring this to an end. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.